My very first experience with K2 was probably meeting Bob Burns.
Chuck being a racer, everything we did was racing, but I said, Charlie, someday when we get enough money, you gotta let me do a hot dog movie.
And he showed up and he looked like Santa Claus's bad stepchild.
And Chuck kept saying, someday when we get some money, we'll do a film.
We hired a guy by the name of Dick Barrymore to take a half a dozen great freestyle skiers around the country and show the United States what freestyle skiing was really all about.
They have the world's greatest job. They ski.
There was something hip about Barrymore. He seemed really connected to the time, 1971, 1972. It was really, a free era. It was a photographic style that he had that was different than any other ski movie that I think had been done.
Man, those guys have got the coolest job in the world. And I sat there in total awe. And I watched the movie over and over and over and again. If anything, my goal in life would be to be a member of the K2 demonstration team.
Wayne Wong, Hot Dogger of the Year.
Those guys that were riding those K2 skis that called themselves the Performers, they were having more fun than everyone else.
All the legends, or the majority of the legends in skiing in general, they're basically all K2 riders.
So naturally, I wanted to do that and be that, and I guess in a certain sort of way, I've become that.
We were exploring what we could do on skis, and and guys like Patrick took it to the next level.
I started hearing the French term, the skiers of the extreme, right? And I'm like, that sounds like something I have to steal.
It was kind of the freestyle of the late 80s, early 90s.
K2 was on board with Greg Stump. He was a little bit crazy and a little bit quirky, and he was making these silly movies.
We wanted our movies to look like those stills that Shapiro and Faulkner and Ace Cavalli were doing that was coming out of Clondon, They just had a sexy feel to them, There were always great powder shots, great composition and great light, and that's what we aspired to try to shoot like.
I met Schmidt in New Zealand, and he came to Verbier immediately afterwards the following winter, and we worked all winter together.
The Greg Stump films with Scott Schmidt.
And Hatrup as well. Those guys really brought it to the table.
They weren't great movies, but they were young and they were different, and there was nobody else doing it.
He changed ski movies from that standpoint because he really brought you inside the characters' heads.
My whole idea was to make an extreme ski movie. The whole thing's all extreme.
I mean, now I remember seeing extreme tacos at Taco Bell, I think. I mean, it was amazing how that word spread like wildfire.
From that moment forward, the word extreme became part of the American pop culture lexicon.
If it's real and authentic, you got to go out on a limb there and just say, hey, this is who we are. And if you don't like it, that's okay.
It's one of those things, if you think about the brand over the past 50 years, our athletes have always been the outcasts, the ones that the Austrian race brands would never want to touch. But to us, that was all that mattered, was that kind of athlete.